Hello, welcome back. Today we will look into the early philosophy of Wittgenstein, and in that, the picture theory of meaning. In general, in picture theory of meaning, what Wittgenstein claims is that the propositions or the language we speak actually reflects reality. They can represent reality. So we can say that the picture theory of meaning is a representational theory of meaning. That the reality, what is in the external world, can be represented in language. When introduced the early philosophy of Wittgenstein, I told that the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, the book Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, begins with the statement or the proposition that world is all that is the case. Whatever we can call real, whatever existing as reality is the world. And if world is the reality, then Wittgenstein claimed that the world can be represented in language, in the way that the world can be represented in picture. So, the way in which we represent world in a picture, the way in which we draw the picture of the world, in the same way, the world can be represented in language. So, propositions are the pictures of reality. The world can be represented in picture. In the same way, the world can be represented in language. So, the language or the proposition is the picture of the world. So, that's what Wittgenstein claims in this picture theory of meaning. The picture theory of meaning is Wittgenstein's theory of meaning, which is one of his most celebrated innovations in the book Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. The picture theory is a representational theory of meaning. We have seen that the book Tractatus deals with many subjects like language, reality, world, self, then ethics, logic, the mystical, the self. Many problems of philosophy are dealt with in the book called Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. Whereas the most celebrated aspect of this book is the picture theory of meaning. And as I have told earlier, the picture theory of meaning is a representational theory. Actually, according to this, the language represents reality. It's not interpreting, it's not prescribing, but it's merely representing. Then, according to the theory, the meaning of a proposition is related to picture. So, if you can represent the world in picture, then the proposition, what the proposition means is the picture of the world. So, or you can identify, you can see that the picture of the world and the proposition about the world are one and the same. Whatever you can do in a picture can be done in a proposition also. So, he calls that proposition of the pictures of reality. The picture theory presupposes the isomorphism of thought, language and reality. This is one of the most important factors as far as the picture theory of meaning is concerned. See, if you want to represent the world as a picture in language, if you want to represent the world as a picture in language, then each and every element of the picture must be representable in language. If you want to describe something, a football game, or the structure of the football ground, and also the players in that ground, then each and every element, the goalpost, the ground, the center line, the players, each and every elements of the game must be representable in language. It can be represented in a picture. You can draw the picture and you can say that this player is by the side of this player. All these things must be representable in picture as well as they must be representable in language. So, for that what is required is that the structure of reality must be the same as that of the structure of language. Only if the structure of reality is the same as the structure of language can you represent the relation in reality as the relation in language. And this possibility or this reality about having the same structures for reality, language and thought is known as the isomorphism of thought, language and reality. Having isomorphism technically means having the same structure. So the thought, language and reality must have the same structure in order for it to be represented in language. And it takes us from linguistic concepts to ontology and further to the limits of the language. Now, if reality is representable in language, then each and every element of reality must be representable using words and the relation using functions. They must be representable. And the representation in language shows the way in which things are related in the world. That's an ontological relationship. The ontological relationship in the world must be reflectable in language also. And also it will show that the limits of the language, if reality is represented in language and if the reality is understood through language, then the limits of the language can limit the understanding of reality. Or whatever reality I can understand is limited by the language which I use. And that's why Wittgenstein famously told, the limits of my language is the limits of my world. Now there are two major influences for the picture theory of meaning. And it's out of these influences that Wittgenstein developed this theory. The first one, he was influenced by a report in a magazine about the lawsuit in Paris involving an automobile accident in which the accidental situation was depicted using toys and models. When there was a trial of the court case about some motor vehicle accident, how the accident took place, they have imitated, recreated the accident using some toys and models. So the reality, what has happened earlier in the world, can be modeled using some representational elements, some toys and models. So whatever really happening in the external world can be simulated, can be recreated using some representational things like toys and models. If they can be represented, then it means that the reality can be represented using some symbols. So Wittgenstein thought if they can be recreated, they can be represented using some models, some toys, some symbols, then they can be recreated using the language. So this makes one possibility. Means there is a relation between, there is a structural relation between what's there in the real world and what we can represent in using models and toys. And the second influence was, he was influenced by Heinrich Hertz's principles of mechanics. You might have heard about Hertz, the frequency Hertz, same Hertz, Heinrich Hertz in his principles of mechanics, the book called Principles of Mechanics, has drawn the engine parts in pictures. So the real engine of a vehicle can be represented in a picture, component by component. The different parts of the vehicle engine can be represented in a picture, piece by piece, component by component, how they are related. So he thought that the reality can be represented in picture. Whatever is there in the engine can be represented in the picture. So the picture is a suitable medium to represent reality. Then we'll come into the picture theory proper. According to the theory, a proposition is a picture of reality. A proposition that cat is on the mat can represent the reality, that is, cat is on the mat. And there is a one-to-one relationship. The word cat in the proposition relates to the object cat. The word mat relates to the object mat. And cat is on, the word on relates to the function, the way in which the object cat and mat are related in the external world. So for every aspects of reality in the external world, there is an element in the picture. Nothing is left unsaid. If you want to have a complete picture of reality, nothing can be left unsaid. Every element of the reality must be represented in the proposition also. If it's clearly represented, then the proposition can be a picture of reality. Now, a picture P may be anything like a 3D model, musical note, gramophone record, and it doesn't say so many examples for what can be a picture. A picture need not necessarily be a drawing or a photograph. A photograph also represents reality. So, a picture need not to be a picture in the sense of a drawing or a photograph, but it can be a model, a 3D model, a clay model, or it can be musical notes. Musical notes also can represent through some ups and downs, some sort of reality. A gramophone record, what is there in a music, what's there in a song is represented in a gramophone record. Gramophone record is an old version of audio device, similar to the CD compact disc, but a bigger one, having some ups and downs according to music, and one arm will be placed on that, which will vibrate according to the music. So the real music, the speech, whatever is the words are represented as ups and downs in the gramophone record. And when it's played, when it's rotating, the arm will vibrate and it will reproduce music. So that verbal reality is represented in gramophone record. So anything which can represent some sort of reality can be considered as a picture. It's not limited to a specific drawing or photograph, something like that, or painting. It can be anything which can represent the reality can be considered as a picture according to Wittgenstein. Now we'll get into the two features of picture P for it to be a picture of the situation S. P is the picture of the situation S. Now for a picture of a situation S, or for P to represent the situation S clearly, then it must have two features or two qualities. The first one is that the picture must be determinate, and the second one is that the picture must be experimental. So these are the two properties, two features of a picture in order for it to be a picture of reality. If P is the picture of the situation S, then P must have two properties, that is, it must be determinate as well as it must be experimental. We will get into the details now. It is due to the determinate factor that P is a picture of S. Every element of P corresponds to the objects in the situation S. If you are explaining some situation, say like an examination hall, then if you want to describe an examination hall in language using prepositions, then you should be able to represent each and every element of the examination hall in language. That's the furnitures, the students, the invigilator, the question papers, the answer booklets, the pens, pencil pouch, all these things, all these elements when you describe, then each and every element in your word or each and every word in your proposition represent one element of reality. When I say this student has put her pen in the pouch, then there must be an object corresponding to the pouch, a student corresponding to the word student, and a pen corresponding to the word pen, and like that. So each and every element of the reality must be represented in the picture. Okay. So for P, for a picture of reality, whether it's a proposition or a drawn picture. Now take the case of a drawn picture which is drawn. Now for the picture to be the picture of an examination hall, each and every element in the examination hall must be represented in the picture. So that's why the picture is determinate. Nothing extra can be added to the picture. Nothing can be taken out in the picture. So if there are 20 objects in the exam hall, all the 20 objects must be represented in the picture. So the picture is determinate. Determinate in the sense it cannot have extra component or it cannot have lesser component. And the way in which the components are arranged in the picture must be the way in which the elements are there in the exam hall. So you have got no freedom to change the arrangement or the component. So it is determinate. So only a determinate picture can represent the reality. Now coming to the second feature, that is, it is experimental since the picture is a model. Its sense is independent of the fact that it represents. It is because of the experimental nature that a picture or proposition is true or false. Now coming to the meaning of the picture. Is it necessary that there must be a examination hall in order for this picture to be true? In order for the picture to have some sense? No. Even if there is no examination hall, the picture makes some sense. Even if there is no examination hall, in reality, the picture has got its own meaning as an examination hall. So, the sense of the picture, the meaning of the picture is independent of the reality. You can make a picture with different configuration, with different number of students, with different types of furniture. So all these things you can make. The picture will still be sensible, but it may not represent the reality. So there is an experimental nature in the picture that you can meaningfully arrange any component in the picture, and be aware of the word meaningfully arrange. You cannot keep one bench and desk in straight way and the other upside down. Then that will not be the picture of reality, or that will be a different reality. So any possible combination can be made in the picture in the way that the picture has got some sense, some meaning. So the picture makes its sense independent of the reality which is existing. The picture of the examination hall makes sense independent of the way in which the examination hall is existing. But if that's the case, then what's the relation between this picture and that examination hall? That's the next question. Now, the picture has got its own sense. Only when this sense corresponds to the reality in the examination hall, this picture is true. So what makes this picture true or false is its correspondence with the reality. So the experimental nature, the possibility of changing the configuration in the picture makes it possible for the picture to be a true picture or a false picture of the reality. If all components are in the same way as in the reality, then it's a true picture of reality. If that's not the case, it's the false picture of reality. So, the experimental nature determines the truth or falsity of the picture, or true or false representation of the picture. So, these are the two factors of the picture. First, we have seen that the picture represents reality. Then, In order for a picture to represent reality, there must be two features for the picture. That is, it must be determinate, every element in the picture must be corresponding to the elements of reality. And secondly, it must be experimental, in the sense that the alternate combinations are possible, must be possible in the picture, and the picture makes sense as its own, and only if the sense corresponds to reality, the picture is a true picture of reality. And that's all for today's class. We will take up the other features of picture theory of meaning in the next class. Till then, bye. Thank you.